it's emotional to me because it just reminds me of my late brother who went through a traumatic experience of depression and mental imbalance. And there were many triggers that made it to happen like that. Um, it was depression and anxiety and you name it, a lot of things that were involved. For 20 years, he was in and out of rehabilitation centers. At some point, we thought maybe it was because of some spiritual issues, which was, but we never really got to pin it down because the pills or the medication that he was taking were making him to be detached with the reality. No, he was detached with the reality and always living in his own world. You know, he never really faced the actual issues that were bothering him, and we couldn't know or we didn't see any best way of how to sort it out. And even from my spiritual side of trying to give him support, it was just one of those things whereby, you know, when something is facing you as a person, you tend not to really have the correct answers or the right answers or right ways of how you can resolve it. But if you are an onlooker or you're an observer, it makes it easy. You can advise what needs to be done or what cannot be done. But then it took me to a thinking and realization that mental illness is real, depression is real, and it starts with the anxiety. And those things for me, they start from the upbringing of that particular person, in this case, a boy. And many of men out there who were boys one day, they went through a lot of peer pressure, family pressure, which leads to expectations that as a young boy, you are expected to be. And as a young adult man, you are expected to be. Then when you're a fully grown up man, you're still expected to be. So the expectations from each phase and each growth stage, they come with pressure. So looking at what the world has experienced in terms of the high rate of men specifically who end up passing on because of heart attacks. They pass on because they committed suicide. Others, they get to be killed. And when I have gone through my research, I also find out and discovered that when they get to be killed, they somehow have provoked the killing to happen so that they can be out of the picture somehow, if they don't have strength to kill themselves. So this challenge or this issue, for me, it has taken me back to look into how are we raising our men? How are we raising our boys, young adults to fully grown men? Looking at the fact that as a man or as a young boy, you are always taught to learn to be the provider. You are taught to learn to be strong. Men don't cry. That's how it's been taught to many boys out there. You're a man, you need to be strong. You can do whatever. You can run whatever race, you can do this, you can do, which is good, that they train men to be strong and to wisen up and to stand. But there's a detrimental factor to that. Is the detrimental factor to that is that the world may not be what the boy is seeing or experiencing at that particular moment. The expectation of a boy to finish varsity or finish school and having to go out there and work, then you are expected to find a job. Then when you found a job, you are expected to provide either for your family or for your family as in your mom and dad or the siblings or the relatives. And when then at a certain stage, you are then expected to get married, get a wife, and have kids, have a house, have this, have that, you know. So these expectations, they build pressure, subconscious pressure. But men tend to absorb that and take it as it is a must, it is my duty that I have to absorb these or these pressures. It is what is expected of me. Now, the world is some really wild, and I would say when I say wild animal, wild in a sense that there's no book that you can really say you can refer to when it comes to the world. In as much as they tried using the Bible as the reference, but it's really not the fact. The world has its own economical changes. The world has its own environmental changes. The world has its own social changes and expectations. Now, the boy or the man has been groomed to live in a certain way. They then now get to be exposed to the world. The challenge comes when they have to now start adjusting to what they have been taught and the real world or the actual world or the practical world out there. Then it becomes like a survival or a struggle for them, daily struggle to live up to what the world is portraying and what they have been taught. The sad part is that during that phase of trying to balance themselves, trying to find a way of fitting in, trying to find the best platform for themselves to be what is expected and to be what they have been taught, is that they cannot have, there's no place or platform or even an opportunity for them to go back and say, Mom or Dad, I'm struggling. I'm going through a rough patch. I don't know how to juggle this around. And then that pushes them to do things that are unthinkable. When I say unthinkable things, it's a matter of whereby others may decide that I just want to relocate and live in a different country. Maybe if I live there, there won't be anyone from my family who's going to see how am I struggling. And if it happens wherever they are not, days go by without them even having to have eaten anything. Sometimes they will sleep on the streets or even try to, because they're trying to fit into this. They will never come home or come back home or even pick up a phone and say, I am struggling, mommy, because when they start saying that, the question would be, how did I raise you? Don't be a weak man. You have to stand strong. You can't be weak. Men don't cry. So from that age whereby the young adult is going through that, they then learn that, you know what? The best way for me is always have to push harder, stumble everywhere where I can stumble, take whatever risks, whether they're calculated risks or not, whether they are financial risk calculated or not, but for the fact that they want to reach somewhere whereby they can be able to come back home and say, Mommy, I did it. Daddy, I made it. Daddy, I have arrived. Now, by the time they reach the so-called arriving, according to them, they're already lost and empty souls. They are damaged souls. There are souls that when you look into those souls, you will like wonder, how is this person still alive? But they will still continue living. Now, looking at that, for me, it was a matter of saying the issues of when we're looking into our own culture or our own language in terms of the African languages, the word depression on its own, the word anxiety. What is that? Do we even have such a word? I remember in one of my previous sessions, I even asked if do we have such a word? Now, my understanding and my own research was that understanding that in my own language, Xhosa, when you say I'm depressed, we actually mean I'm tired, ngikhathele, I'm overwhelmed, ngikhathele, my mind, ingqondo yami inokuningi that ekwamukelayo. I'm overwhelmed. In English, we'll say, it's expression of saying, I'm overwhelmed with happenings around me, around my environment. Then when that happens, then in the English term, they will say it's depression. Now, the anxiety side of it is when now you're so anxious to want to be something. Your anxiety levels, like you worrisome, your paranoia levels, they reach to a point whereby you're worried about everything that's around you, if I will be able to make it. So we then say, when you're anxious, they would say in our own language, I'm worried. I'm worried if something will happen, or what if this doesn't work out, or what if that doesn't work out. So that's why I want to, the reason I want to bring out those words that in our own African culture, those two words, I haven't really, maybe someone can really maybe pinpoint that, no, Gogo, we do have the word anxiety or depression in our own language, and this is what it means. Then I would give that permission that one can do that if in your own language, can be your Kiswahili. If there's a word depression that describes this depression, please share it with us. You know, if in Shona, if there's a word like that, please let us know. Reason I'm bringing this up is to say, when we're looking from the spiritual perspective point of view, when someone comes and then you find that they're going through that phase of being overwhelmed, there are many factors that may be causing that overwhelming time or moment for that person. As I had mentioned, it can start off from the way the person has been brought up, the way that the expectations that they have within the family. And moreover, from the spiritual aspect, you may find that the person is battling with the imbalance of their spirituality. And mostly some of them, you find that they have not really found themselves as who are they in the spiritual realm. What is their purpose in the spiritual realm? They may have found the purpose, the so-called purpose in the physical, when it's whereby to say, okay, I'm a father, I'm a husband, or I'm a brother to somebody, or I'm an uncle to somebody. But now in the spiritual realm, that gap No one can feel it, because if you don't understand that I may have a spiritual issue or a spiritual imbalance, I may then end up not really acknowledging or really dealing with the fact that I've got this imbalance spiritually. Now, that imbalance spiritually can be caused by other factors. You find that depending on maybe the person, maybe the firstborn at home, or maybe the lastborn who has been chosen as being the leader at home, maybe the person has been given a gift of being able to connect with their ancestors. Now, those issues, you find that because of not understanding that person's gifts or that person's destiny or purpose, they then get to be very overwhelmed by the happenings of the spirits that are coming to them or that are with them at the time. That is why, if you can, we can just expand on another side. You find that most of the healers, most of the people would say when somebody is going through the anxiety and depression, they quickly just jump into saying, no, the person has to go through the initiation phases, or the person has got a calling. Well, that is I would dispute it in two ways, to say sometimes, but not always, that a person has to go through a calling to heal the depression or to heal the anxiety. But it means that there is some spiritual imbalance that needs to be balanced. That person will look into the fact that nowadays the challenge, I would say, take it back to the fact that the challenge of most of us as Africans, we are no longer really abiding to our cultures and customs. We want to revolutionize everything. We want to make it modern. We want to make it suitable for us. We're not really no longer looking at the actual practices of our culture, and specifically understanding that a boy at a certain stage, some things have to happen for him or to him, or certain rituals have to be done. When they're reaching a puberty stage, something has to happen. When they're reaching a stage of being a man, something has to happen. So you find that most of those stages and rituals or ceremonies, or I would say cultures, have not been abided by most of us as Africans, which now leads to the spiritual imbalance of most of our men, in terms of how best can they be able to handle or to even know how to face the world and challenges out there. Now, looking at the other flip side of the coin, let's say somebody has been spiritually balanced, but they still experience the anxiety or the depression. Okay. As I've mentioned earlier on, there is the economical changes or imbalance that happen. So as a young man, you are then now expected to provide financially. You are expected to go to work, and you're expected to have some sort of business, but there has to be some sort of income that you have for you to be known or to gain that respect. Now, things happen that you don't get to have that. Automatically, that is going to take you to a ditch. You cannot have the work that you wanted that you've dreamed of. You cannot have the finances that you've dreamed of. You cannot have the houses, or be able to provide the way that you've imagined you can. Then what happens to you? Automatically, you're going to start having complexity issues. You're going to start doubting yourself as a man. You're going to start feeling incompetent as a man. You're going to start feeling useless as a man. And now the question would be, who is there to listen to that? Who is there for you to be able to listen when you pour out your issues or your concerns or your pain? No one. Why? Because you're a man, you have to be strong, you can hold this, you can do this, and everyone's looking up to you. How dare you say you cannot? How dare you say you cannot find a job? How dare you say you cannot provide for your family? And that vicious cycle becomes very strong to an extent that others, they feel that, no, I can't do this anymore, and they take their lives. Now, another side whereby someone is very wealthy, they've got all the monies in the world. They can do anything they want anytime with the money they have, but they're still depressed. They're still anxious, and they're suffering from anxiety and depression. So in that case, we then would say, Gogo, if that is the case, then what could have been the problem? What could be the problem? Now, we have to understand that each phase of life has got its own peer pressures, okay? At that time and that stage and that level, you've got money, but you're still under pressure because you have to maintain this money. You have to make sure that this money doesn't become less, instead it becomes more. You have to maintain the status quo that, I've arrived, I've got money, I can provide for everyone. And that pressure can lead you to feeling lonely, even though there's everyone around you, because you're thinking, oh my goodness, by the way, so much cash has gone out, and make sure that I replace it. Oh, people around me, it's not because maybe they really care about me. By the way, they want my money, so I have to make sure I provide. Or I have to make sure that I keep the title going on, and my status, my titles and my status, I have to make sure that I keep it going, so that I won't be seen lesser of a man. That on its own is pressure. You're expected to deliver, you're expected to give, you're expected to do. No one is going to sit down and actually believe you when you tell them, you know what, this is just too much for me. I feel that I'm overwhelmed by the fact that I'm under pressure. There's pressure for me to do everything. There's pressure for me to provide. There's pressure for me to give to people, to always wake up and hustle and do this and do that. That pressure can lead to a person to have the depression. And that's why I said it's overwhelming. It's the tiredness. They get tired. The body gets tired. The soul gets tired. And now on that level, you find that now the person would be having all the money in the world, but they're depressed. And then we get issues whereby someone has had money, and then they lose the money, or they lose their jobs. That is straightforward. The person automatically, they will feel useless. And worst part of it, when they look at the family, that the family is expecting them to do these things, and they cannot. I'm going to make few examples. In South Africa, we've had deaths that have happened, suicidal deaths. I had mentioned Patrick Shayi before. Now, later on, we had Ricky, who also took his life. And apparently he had confessed and mentioned that he's suffering from depression, anxiety. Ricky has had all the monies. When we looked at him, we thought, wow, he's living such a lovely, luxurious life. He's got everything on a silver platter, beautiful wife, beautiful kids. He's got everything, but yet he was suffering from depression. Yet he was suffering from anxiety. Yet he was not okay emotionally. He was not okay spiritually. Now, coming to the issue of Patrick Shayi was a matured man who had gone through his phases in life and recovered in his own way, did his best to make sure that he becomes an example to the youngsters. But something happened that triggered everything, then he couldn't hold it. Then he decided to end his life. Now we're looking at somebody at that age to say, but this person was old enough to be able to have managed his emotions or managed how he sees things, and he couldn't have been so selfish to just decide to take his life. Now, you may find that at that time when he then felt that, I can't take this anymore, he was tired. He was overwhelmed by everything. He felt that I don't have any option, because everyone by that time, they were expecting him to be the standing up person, Patrick Shai, expecting him to be the strong Shai that he has been. Now he has gone through this, he can still go through this again. He'll be okay. He's a man. The platform of whereby he can share his pain was not there. Maybe it was there, but not sufficiently enough to be able to allow him to cry as a man and allow him to be in touch with his feelings. Talking about feelings and being in touch with self, we need to understand that any human being has got both the feminine and the masculine energy. Now, what happens most of the time, men are being motivated, or they're being trained to entertain only the masculine energy. They are not being taught to also embrace the feminine energy that is within them, which is why most men are taught not to cry. They are taught to be strong, whatever reasons, whatever situations. They are taught to always have solutions for everything that happens in life. So now, with that detachment or of that feminine energy, automatically you're going to have an imbalanced being. You're going to have an imbalanced man. You're going to have an imbalanced masculine energy, because there's no support of the feminine energy. Now, I need you to understand that when we then do the prayers, or when we connect to the universe is it's Mother, Father, Earth. Mother, Father. That means both energies, energies, your masculine and your feminine, have to work together. Most plants, most animals is male and female. It's never just male only. So now, us being the male, or say the animals that are beyond that were created in a way that we have our own specialized way of doing things, like our computer, which is our brain. Now we have been made to understand that we need to know that we have both of these things, the balance of male and female within us. But the challenge is that we have not been able to know that. Hence, we only maximize on one aspect. If you are a man, you've got you have been born as a boy. The first thing that goes into is that you're a man. We have to buy you cars. We have to buy you, give you spears. We have to give you toys that are perceived that as a man, this is how we should go. As a woman, or as a girl child, you've been bought toys and you've been groomed to make tea and all that. The toys that you've been bought is dolls and all that, starting to do your nails and all that. From that foundation already, we have segregated the actual nature of a human being that we want to build in the near future. So, meaning to say, in all these aspects, what we're seeing now at a higher level. When I say higher level, what we see now, when our men are now committing these suicides. Men are depressed. Men have got high level of anxiety. They cannot really find true balance. Is because the foundation has been a problem most of the times. And also specifically, you find that somebody changes the environment. They've never experienced this. They're so used to be cushioned in a certain way that I know life has to go like this. As I mentioned earlier on, you groom your boy that this is how you're going to be. Now, they then leave you and detach and go to the world shows them a different page. Now they struggle between the two. How are they going to balance? Automatically, that is going to lead them to be overwhelmed by the happenings of that environment and the changes. The change that they will be going through is going to overwhelm them, and they will end up being depressed. Now, before I go further, I just want to give you guys a bit of a breather to mention or to share just a little bit of your own experiences, or somebody that you know, a man that you know that you have seen who was going through such things as depression and or anxiety. Anyone can come through.
Tokozani.
Togoza.
Yeah, I think from my side, listening to everything that is being said, I think it's honestly the truth, because I met a friend on Friday that I haven't seen in a while, and then I was at the garage actually doing alignment to my car, and he was like, yeah, no, asking me how life is, and saying that he was actually having a conversation with his other friends to say, as much as men are, because I was asking him if he's gotten married yet or not. And he was saying, no, I don't want anything to do with that, because we're talking about the pressures that men go through, that at the end of the day, you have yourself that you have to deal with, and then you meet someone and you have kids, and then you have to take care of yourself, of them, and then even the person, when they are not happy for some reason, it also falls part of your responsibility to make them happy as a man, which is just too much. And then when are we going to be cared for, or actually thought of, that are we okay or not? So with everything that you actually iterated in terms of life and how we grow up and expectations, mostly, it's something that I think most of us men go through, because it's exactly how the society believes that anything happens in the house, the first person to look at is a man. Else, if you cannot fix the situation, you end up being useless. So the question would be then, how was it actually made to happen in terms of nature? Not looking at it from a community perspective. How are things supposed to be in terms of balancing that issues that we currently have in terms of expectations that are from men that they must do?
Yes. So you're saying that your friend was like, he's not willing or looking to get married anytime soon because of the pressures that happen within the marriage.
Yes, he just believes relationship are just unfair for men. Any relationship of some kind, actually, where there's a man and a woman, it's more unfair to men in terms of what is expected from them.
So so in that sense of saying, in any relationship, the man's expectations exceed the female's expectations, so to speak.
Yes.
And obviously that puts pressure on the particular person, or a man, and they may end up not. Others, maybe they might be in that relationship or marriage, they end up not they cannot really come out if it's a relationship that has commitment, or if maybe it's a marriage that's got some certain commitment. Others end up staying in, and then it can maybe result to somebody deciding to take their lives because there's no way out. Those are the probabilities, isn't it?
Yes, true. Because like I always refer to things not as problems per se, but to say when there's issues, I think we certainly need to equip one another with the tools of handling scenarios, and then that's where we actually grow and become better as people. So I think most of that, with the pressures, like you mentioned, the revolutionizing of what is currently happening now in the world, is totally different from what our forefathers were actually going through. There's a different struggle. So, and also with the women empowerment, which obviously comes through, and then with the same woman not actually being empowered in terms of the tools of how to handle that power within the house as well. It causes a whole imbalance within what we actually deal with in the current situations.
No, thank you so much, Kagiso. Thank you so much for your inputs. I really appreciate. Is there anyone who would like to voice out the issues that we're talking about today? We're talking about anxiety and depression. I would like to welcome, I'm going to just call him directly, Ubabungola. I would like you to come through and voice your opinions on this matter. Sawubona mkhulu. I think he just, Sawubona khehle njani?
Siyaphila, siyakhuleka emakhosini, siyakhuleka kwizalukazi namakhaya.
Makhosi.
Ngiyaxolisa ukufika late, bengisaqeda izinto zomsebenzi lana.
Akongenga.
Kodwa yona ngiyibambile yona i-conversation ukuthi angifuni ukukhuluma kakhulu, but it's interesting, the anxiety topic, especially as you're saying, under pressure of being a provider. And as Mfethu was just speaking about now, is as we're facing the momentum of women empowerment as well, how do we balance these things? And I think something that you said was very interesting is ukuthi le nto esiyiphilayo isikhathi esiningi is not even usiko lwethu ngale ndlela elaliyo yona. And mina living here in America, ngisafika ngabambela yonke into ibhayi lami ngiliqoka nje yonke into yayiyi-force, angifuni bengithathele lento kumina. Kodwa kwama ngesikhathi ugcina usubukeka ngathi you're trying to force yourself onto people and you're trying to judge them for, you guys are Christians, you this, you that. So then you end up in a lot of fights, and then ngilokhu ngibuka uNkulunkulu ngilethele la America indlela yami yasemsamo isiqala kangaka. Why am I being pulled away from umsamo wasekhaya?
Yes.
And now I'm just watching YouTube videos, and ngishadile mina lana, and umuntu engishade naye mdala kunami ngeminyaka ewu-4. So I've directly had to face what it means to be in a relationship, and my insecurities or securities of who makes more money, who is the elder, coming with the perspective yokuthi ngumZulu, what it means to be inhloko noma indoda yekhaya, and her being a Black American woman, and you know, highly empowered, highly educated. But I will say this, it's a very tricky thing. But Linda Tuisho, usiko lethu asaliphili ngendlela ekufanele siphila ngayo. I think that that's where the key to this whole thing is. Ngoba nami sometimes ngiyazizwa ukuthi lento engiyenzayo nje halfway. I feel la ngifuna ukuthi ifike khona. Kahle kahle ngifuna ukugida, ngifuna ukushisa impepho, ngifuna ukukhala isigubhu, kodwa ngingedwa. So angigide mhlawumbe ngizodlala uYouTube ngizwa omakhosi abakhona-ke ngizame kanjalo kodwa sengiyathi hey lento ayisadonsi ngendlela engifuna ukuthi idonse ngayo yabo ngidinga ekhaya. But I've been learning and coming to understand ukuthi the only way I've been able to be secure in myself ngokuba lana and you have to go through transition period lama ungakasebenzi as you're getting yourself on your feet, what they would call, this is a derogatory term, but or being a foreigner, you know, experiencing that and experiencing Black Americans not liking you as an African. Sure. They have this view, we see a lot of Africans who come here look down on Black Americans because they feel they're not connected. So, hey, it's a big mess. But the more I've been able to be vocal with my wife about mina ngibona kanjena uba indoda yomuzi, uba inhloko yomuzi. Ngiyazi ukuthi akuyonto ejwayelekile in 2022 in this time of, but when we look at what's happening in our family and she has a son, izinto okhala ngazo, le discipline oyifunayo, le direction, le vision oyifunayo that you think I can offer him, it won't work in this structure. So we've actually really had to face ukuthi we have to intentionally make decisions and create environments where iyacaca le hierarchy. Not to say one is above another, but what are we teaching a young Black man, mengawazi ukufunda ukuhlonipha an elder Black man to him, and all he knows is that I respect my mother and women only. What that leads to is ukuthi you're gonna have problems with authorities.
Yes.
So this thing is very systematic. And making our mothers the providers is on purpose, but it leads to the type of situations I'm in. And it is very difficult when you are trying to be politically correct and play the line, because it's actually not created for you as a Black man and as supposed to be a leader of a Black family. It's not created for you to create, to embody a wholesome family. It's created to have a continuous imbalance. So not everyone is the same, but and to whatever, you know, they can palate, because it's very different. But in those few things, it has changed a lot. So not bafethu singasabi ngoba angazi ngathini. We can't also wait for umuntu wesifazane to tell us ukuthi asibe namadoda athize.
Yes.
Lento kufanele iqhamuke ekuthini, iqhamuka vele, iqhamuka komkhulu nogogo, kodwa kufanele nathi khona into ekufanele siyithemba. I always say ukuthi in the past few years we've seen women stepping into their divinity, the essence of the divine feminine. And yes, there's some women who are doing izinto eziseceleni, but majority of the energy is you seeing women, Black women, understanding their position as being creators of the world, understanding their position as being mothers and nurturers, and starting to demand a certain level of respect. I embrace women who have high standards, but it becomes problematic if, Tina, we're not moving in our divinity. Mind you, who thinks she's this, that, and the other. But as soon as we step into our divine energy, she's not above you, but she's right next to you. Now we have a lot of standards. But it's just that sometimes, if we don't stick to Usigo the way it was, we move away from things that were created for us. We don't even need to freestyle this and come up with new things. For a reason. So that's my 2 cents, Ngalana. Usigo lwethu seems to be the only way that's going to save us from anything that's happening. Everything else is not created by us. Yes. The one thing that we still have in this world, full ownership, that other people don't really understand, and that's why they demonize, is usigo lwethu.
Yes, definitely. So was Mkhulu. Yes, go to Mkhulu before hand. I'm just from what you just said and or the previous kuluma, I'm picking up a gap at the support system. When I talk about support system, I'm talking about support can either be support from your family, your siblings, or even your partner. That support system, I think it's another thing that is a gap that makes one to feel that they put pressure on them. They feel less of themselves. They feel that they're alone and they need to understand. So what from what you just said, I'm taking from what you just mentioned now that you there, you feel that sometimes you connect and everything. Maybe the partner doesn't even understand. Let's get a small drum and just drum for you ukuthi ukwazi connect and then akuthokozise alivumele idlozi livele akutonleje support ukuthi uyagida and be happy for you and the kids bahlale bajabule and understand and support ukuthi this is who daddy is. Let's support him the way he is. Now you have to suppress that. We understand because the environment doesn't allow you to be who you need to be, and I'm just grateful for the sense that you are aware of the situation, you are aware of what is happening, and you, instead of sitting there and be depressed and thinking, oh, even this thing is pure Sam, I just have to Lena. You then opted to let me just connect to the network out there, internet, and try to get a sense of balance, because that gap. Remember what I mentioned? Maybe we got join. I mentioned earlier on another challenge that leads to depression in most of our men is the fact that there's an imbalance of spirituality. The spiritual imbalance may lead to such things whereby one is overwhelmed because you're not balanced spiritually. The urge of needing to balance your spirituality, it's not satisfied or fulfilled. So obviously you're going to opt for other things that are not really aligning to embrace or grow you spiritually. So I'm really grateful of what you're doing, and thank you for joining us. And this platform, when you say I'm not going to talk too much, I wanted to say this is a platform to talk.
To what you just said. So what I find interesting is mina ngikhule in an Anglican home, Emlazi. Gogo yasonta, she's part of the women's league. By 7, 8, just a full-on, you go to church 5 days a week. When my great-grandmother had the calling, she didn't take it. My grandmother had the calling, waqala igobongo waswayeka, kwasikwehlela kuma wami, oyisangoma, kwangena kusisi wami, oyisangoma bathwasile bona. Me and my brother also kuyacaca ukuthi kukhona. Sesobona ngendlela ukuthi kwenzekani. Kodwa singane nje ekhaya zedlozi semakhosini. So I'm living this and I feel so powerful about it. And I come out into the world. And I know obviously in South Africa, there's a lot of people also don't believe in Lezinto. So I have experience with being challenged about but what you're speaking about is this lack of support. Depression, it was COVID times. Abantu bathi thathana ama-vaccine and I would do izinto engacacile ngishisa impepho ngigide mina. I'm not taking anything engahlangene nami. But after a while, because the support and the infrastructure is not as much, sugida less singalifasa nje ibhayi. Angisenzi lokho. So I was until it got to a point where I was thinking to myself from watching videos online, maybe I should go and join the Fruits of Islam, the Nation of Islam. At least lapho khona there's black men who are connected to uNkulunkulu. I need some guidance. Ngidinga enye into engayisho ukuthi yazi into engiye ngiyinake mhlawumbe is also the spaces I've been around. Ababaningi omkhulu abasifundisayo nathi siyingane zabafana. Kodwa osisi bethu bona banogogo abaningi ababasondezayo belifunde lolwazi. And it almost makes it seem like mhlawumbe uyaphapha kakhulu because you're indaba wapapha kuzona izinto ezihlangene now. And all that creates is that I then leave Ekaya, Sekaya, to go find this knowledge instead of finding it in Sam, which I think is unfortunate. But umuntu wacishe wangena kuba a nation of Islam because I was looking for that male camaraderie, for that spiritual guidance with abanye abantu besilisa ababantu abamnyama. But I remembered very quickly ukuthi ne-Islam nayo yenza into eyiningi e-Africa. So I had to go back to him, Sam, ngithandaze futhi ngicela uNkulunkulu ngicela ungikhombise indlela yokuthi ngizowenza kanjani-ke njengoba ngisalana. But I definitely agree with you with the anxiety of having the lack of support is difficult. And I think the breakdown, once I can always take it back to the relationship between a son and his father. So ubaba wami to wayekhona wazi ungifundisa zonke lezi zinto. Mase ngifike emzini sengishadile, ngiyayazi into ade ngeke ngiyiphile. I had to go through challenges of ukuthi okay, ngidinga ukwenza kanje ngoba umuzi wami ufuna ube kanje ngoba ngiyingane yedlozi. But because I didn't know, there were a lot of trials and tribulations. But I guess it's part of life. But I agree with you, Kuluguti. The anxiety because there's a lack of support. And in the discussion,
Yes.
And what we don't understand is that the rest of other people, other nations and races do not live like that. And honestly, I don't even think Uguti used to live like that.
No.
That is a concept of being oppressed.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's my 2 cents there.
Thank you so much, Kulungola. I would like to have your details. If maybe you can write them on the thing on the group somewhere. RV, can you please just take his details so that we can also just have a constant follow up with Kulu, so that he feels that at least he feels he's got a place in the home where he can be able to talk to people who are like-minded. Thank you so much, Mkhulu. Ndiyacamagusha, makhosi.
Makhosi, siyabonga gogo.
Mkhulu. Moving forward, I would like to also just call upon, I'm gonna just do this, ngizokufaka on the spotlight. Gogo Nomsazulu, ngisacela nje ukuzwa izwi lakho mntana idlozi.
Thokozani gogo.
Tamako.
Thokozani Dlozi. I'm not gonna say much, but I really appreciate to be part of the platform, because I believe that abantu besilisa esikhathini esiningi they suppress how they feel, ne? Because of how they were raised, ukuthi indoda ayikhali, and ukungakhali kwendoda ukulimala komphakathi, ngoba ngesintu siyazi ukuthi indoda iyikhanda lasendleni, ikhanda uma lingasebenzi sizohamba njani lesitimela. So I guess it's high time. Yes, it's high time where we need to teach our boy child ukuthi you need to break down, you need to cry, you need to open up, because now in future they end up kunguthi yonke le pain abakhula beyisuppressa, when it unleashes kulimala abantu abaningi. So gogo, I'm grateful. I'm happy to be part of the conversation. We are trying, as an educator, I'm an educator by profession. We are trying to have platforms where we have we cannot speak about men and boys when they are not there. The problem is that we always have dialogues where we'll have a girl child and all these things, where we feel which we are accommodating amantombazana more than abafana. Whereas we can, yes, we cannot run away to affect Yoguti. These genders, they need each other, because we strike a balance. Because we cannot strengthen umntana ntombazana, ngoba umntana ntombazana, once I feel that power, ucindezela lo ongapha, lo ulahlekelwa ubudoda bakhe. Hence, most men Yes, most men, they feel ukuthi abantu besifazane now they are trading places with them. So umuntu akasazifili ayindoda endlini because thina every time everything it's women this, women's day, women's international day, women's this and that. And manje asibheki lento ngalendlela yokuthi isikhathi masiloku siya abantu besifazane bayogcina bebodwa amadoda angasekho.
Siyacamaguzwa injalo
Thokoza injalo gogo ngoba ibuye ibe nzima kakhulu ngoba uma sebebadala awusakwazi ukulungisa all the damage that they've been through. Nasendlini emakhaya wethu umntana umfana kakhulumi. Ngiphinde ngivumelane nomkhulu ukuthi thina as women or girls siba nogogo okhuluma naye. Bona they don't have umkhulu. Ekungukuthi
They
makanenkinga
are not even given that option to have.
No, they are not, because kumele aqine ngithi ukhala kanjani.
Yes.
So thokoza
Yes.
gogo ngiyabonga kakhulu. Thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you so much. And thank you to you mkhulu. Thank you very much.
Ngiyabonga. Thank you so much for the inputs. Now, I think for me, it's a matter of saying, from these inputs and discussions that we have, the conversation for today, we need to now, I would say, look into the how part. How best can we now then say we're going to make a change? How do we make a change? The little change that we can have. That's why the topic was more on under men's rights. What rights can we look into, start implementing as men? You know, what rights do we need to have as men? You know, what rights we need to, the community and the society to know that these are our rights as men. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that issue that is being very hidden and it's not spoken about openly. The depression that happens in relationships, depression that happens in marriages, whereby the female partner is abusive to the male partner. But now you find that the male partner doesn't have, or does not just having powers. They feel that they cannot even have any platform to go and share the issues that they are going through with that particular partner, whereby coming back to what we've been talking about ukuthi thina besifazane, we female, we are given that leverage of having to go to ugogo. We understand, but when it comes to a man, they can hardly go to an uncle and say, "Hey, malume, yazi ukuthi umfazi wami uyangidepressa, okanye umfazi wami uyangihlupha A to Z," because immediately when a man or you go to somebody who's elder, you confess or you pour out your issues or whatever that is troubling you with your relationship, you are made to be seen like a failure or somebody that cannot really handle their business. And normally you find that this depression slowly builds up and leads to this and builds this animal what's inside of a man. And that's why it leads to most of the time gender-based violence, whereby now the guy or the man can no longer sustain or be able to manage this bottled up anger or these issues that he's been holding inside. And then when a woman starts saying something or they provoke in a certain way, or they're not sometimes not even provoking, they're just saying a statement, and then now that unleashes the beast that has been hidden, the beast that has been there, as a suppressor. I'm not saying or condoning gender-based violence, but I'm just bringing up the other flip side of the coin that somehow plays a role in terms of the gender-based violence, which we are not talking about. Normally, it's always been said and portrayed that men are just these animals who just decide and choose to be violent to their partners, to beat their partners, to be so ruthless and kill their partners. That is the picture that the media is portraying. That is the picture that the world is portraying, that men are just so crazy and so insane that without looking at the root cause as to what are the factors that led to that, what has transpired. There's the upbringing issue is another factor. Now the person is in a relationship or is in a marriage. They've been told that you cannot leave this person because of this and this. So they have to sustain whatever that partner of them is taking them through. And nathi thina bantu besifazane, I'm not saying ukuthi si right or si wrong, but I'm just mentioning that most of the times we are somehow having a hand to the outcome of whatever that man has become to be. And I think Lando Eti, we somehow take it positive or negatively to an extent, the fact that since Alabantu, we are the source of Mother Nature. And now, with that being said, we then now want to take the authority over everything, without forgetting the fact that we cannot always be the ones who are going to walk in front. We have to allow other people to lead us so that we create the balance. They say the yin and the yang, and there's always that balance has to always be there, the feminine and the masculine energy. So I'm just going to throw it out there with the next few minutes, because at least at 9:30, I believe we can end the session, whereby I believe that this is recorded for us, because I wish I hope it's recorded, because I wish for us to share or to pinpoint the what you call it, to pinpoint the things, or that how our rights should be as men. What do we believe should be our destined rights? I think if we can start also from that angle, it will then be a sense of, if once we get those, if I would say the rights that we believe we have to have, it makes it easier then to have those rights, communicate them to our youngsters. Meaning to say, as we are this generation, let's then start creating the platform of being the ones who are grooming our sons and telling them, okay, as a man, this is your right. As a young boy, this is your right. As a young gentleman, this is your right. I don't know whether I'm making it. Am I clear on that one? So is there anybody, just even, you don't have to be genius about it, but I just want the genuinity around this, to say, I believe, Boko, this should be one of our rights, because even the Constitution only accommodates women, that women's rights are. When it comes to men, then it's like generic, everyone, human, everyone falls under human, there's no men's rights. So I would like to have inputs on that. Anyone is free to come through. Arvi, what do you have in mind?
No, I'm listening, Gogo. I'm listening, Gogo.
Okay. It's fine, Kulu. You can go ahead.
I would think that, to tell the honest truth, it's like, what right do we have as men to have rights? But hey, angisaba ngisho nokusho, kodwa I think ukuthi it's not a specific right, as in this is what it must be. I don't know how to put it in that way, but what I'm trying to get to is, I remember before Ngisuye Kaya, the lady Minister of Department of Education said, which is the boy child in South Africa is 5 years behind the girl child. at grade 7 level. That was the first day where I was like, wow, okay. So we living on the internet where people are saying men are trash, men have been oppressing women. And it is true. For me, though, at 31, and Pilanga, maybe in that time, I went to school where we were being taught from grade 1, Uti, Mutosfazan is as equal as you. And we were seeing how they were trying to make up for what happened in the past. And so we keep quiet because that's what we taught. But when I hear Uti Ingani Mfana is 5 years behind, at that point, it feels like Uti, this is also still going to damage the woman again one day in life, because now she's going to be around men that are not developed. So if anything, it would be the right or the ability, Uti, as we are learning to understand that women are different to men and they need things that are tailored specifically to them, develop. I think, like you're saying, we need to start understanding that it can't be one size fits all for amadoda as well. And I think the more it becomes one size fits all, the more our ability to express our emotions gets limited.
Okay.
It's either you're an aggressive man or you are a weak man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that as people start to understand us as individuals, we are all different shapes and sizes and thinking. So I don't know how to explain that properly, but I'm just saying, from what we've seen the young girls getting, I think we need to see young boys getting that same type of personal attention before trying to say to them, fine.
Yes. No, I hear you, Mkulu. I think it takes me back to what I once mentioned, Uguti. I would like us to look into adopting a boy. Let it be a boy that is not within your family. You know, somebody that you go out there in the community, you identify a certain boy that you can adopt, not adopt in the actual sense, but whereby you say, I'm going to groom this man, this young boy, and also obviously you have to get the permission from the parents to say, I would like to be that uncle or that mkulu, or that the boy can come to and talk to, to start grooming them in a certain way, so that we create that pool or that community whereby young boys are able to pick up a phone and say, hey, Mkulu, Buti or Malume Angola, I'm going through this phase and I don't know what to do. How do I go about? Or they can be able to come and cry to you, and you won't judge them for crying or to understand. So I think maybe for me is to say, let's start looking into that, which is something that I'm putting out there to say, most men, can we start looking into that? Because let alone we've got this the spirit of Ubuntu and within us, but this is now as part of trying to make change or implement change. We need to start somewhere. We need to do something. Now that's also my view, because as you say, that it's most men are dynamic, in as much as women are dynamic. We are diverse in our own sense, but there's a structure that is there which gives like a guideline or reference point, which is what I would like us to look into, to say, as an African man or as an African boy or as a man, what is expected of me? What is it that I need to do? What are my rights per se? My rights are, I know that if I'm not feeling well, I'm allowed to say I am not feeling well and this is hurting me. Simple. You understand? You're not. It's not a taboo to say I'm hurting. It's not a taboo to say I'm not feeling well today. It's not a taboo to say I cannot afford to do this. It's not do you understand? Such simple things. That's what I think I'm looking at, to say those little things that are normally a foundation of most men feeling insecure or feeling inferior than the next partner. I think we might need to start looking into that. So I think for me, then it takes me to say, in our next session, I'm going to leave you guys with some, I would say, like a homework, so to speak, to say in our next session, I would wish one to have written like maybe 2 or like 3 things that you say, as a man, I've got the right to, 3 things. Now I wish us that we can share those things. And then I think for me, that would be able to give me some sense of direction as going forward.
Listen, this like that we come up with. In your opinion, do you believe ukuthi is outdated, and are we supposed to be evolving it according to the times? Ngoba uMahle ethi ungakhohle ukuthi idlozi is very intelligent. So just because you say America kusho ukuthi awudingi ukuthandaza, izodonsa lapha iWi-Fi yedlozi kubambe lapha. So I also wonder, is it the same? Like, do we evolve our culture, or in a time where there's so much? I mean, according to the Bible, this looks like Babylon times. It's revelations. Are we supposed to be evolving to an environment like this, or is this when we're supposed to say no? Usiko lethu was exactly like this before befike abelungu.
To answer you on that one, the culture doesn't evolve. Okay, amasiko will stay amasiko. Okay, but now the implementation thereof, in the sense, I'll make an example. Before, back in the days, when you have to go to a healer, you would have to go there physically and all right. But there's another element that was not clearly known back in the days. We as healers, we're able to connect with someone who's far away using the spiritual Wi-Fi's. Okay, so now what has happened? The technology has created those easier platforms whereby we now can do consultations via WhatsApp, because the technology is there for us to do that. You understand? It does not change. It has not changed the concept of saying you connect to the spiritual realm. You have to go to Mundu Umhlahlube. That has not changed. But now, because of the environment, it has maybe made easier. Now you can connect and see the face of Mundu in that aspect. Because back in the days, you know what they used to do? They would put a bowl and pour water, and Isangoma will call that person, and that person will come up and wherever you are in America. When and you will be able to see and listen to me. You understand? But now those technologies have now been taken away by the Western technology. So now what I'm trying to explain, there's no evolution of culture, but it's a matter of saying, looking at what are the basics that we still need to keep into doing. In your case, you are there in a foreign country. It doesn't stop. It doesn't change. It doesn't change. It doesn't change. That does not change, which is why I'm taking it back to the issue of the support system. If you had that support system, it wouldn't still change. You need to listen to the drums, and that does not change. But now, because you are in a different environment, we're trying to adjust to that environment, because the environment is not conducive for us to be who we are. So that's why we end up doing this evolution kind of a lifestyle, because the environment is not allowing us to be who we are. But it does not change. There's no evolution of culture. For example, if we're going to say evolution of culture, then we're going to now start talking of, we're going to have to choose what has to be evolved. Do you understand? Because hi Yashay, hi Yashay, I'm welcoming you. So Islando, for example, the norm or the basic culture says a man has to marry. A man is the one that proposes a woman, so-called. But things now somehow they went otherwise, whereby women can also propose. Do you understand? But according to how the culture has been, is that a man goes and pays the dowry, and that has not changed. So now if we say we're going to start evolving, now it means evolving what? Changing that, or what do we do? Do you understand? And there's also taking back to what I was saying when I say we need to look into adopting a boy, whereby we now, because we are the generation that has to make that change. We know what has not been done to us, which we want to correct through our next generation. As a young boy, what is it that you were taught? Now that you see, now that you're older, say, no, this mistake needs to be corrected. You understand? Now we're rewriting the history. We're not just talking about it, but we're rewriting it to make sure that the future generation is able to learn from us. So there's no changes in the culture. The issues of circumcision, we are also going to talk about that in the next phase. Now you need to be circumcised. What is the benefit and why do you need to be circumcised? And respecting a woman, and as a man, these are the things. Your rights are as follows. You know, unelungelo lokuthi wenze ukuthi, unelungelo lokuthi ube kanje, those are the things that we need to communicate. Based on the culture, make reference to what the culture has been or what the culture is. It does not change. That one, I want to make it clear. There's no culture that we're going to start now modernizing it. Because I'll make an example. You look at how our Western people have been in terms of their marriages, you know, and the culture. White wedding has been white wedding. That has not changed from year to year. Instead, now, we as our Africans, we've adopted that culture and we've made it our own. Do you understand? So now it means when we say we want to evolve with the culture, it means that we are opening ourselves to adopting cultures that are not ours. Look at how Muslims have lived. Look at how Muslims are living. They are still unto their culture. So why us as African, Black Africans or Africans, we want to look into now let's modify our culture. Oh, Isha, yes, thank you, Isha. My apologies if I pronounce your name wrong. It's Isha. Okay. Yes, I will allow you now to speak, definitely, Isha. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Nkulungola, I was just explaining that another thing is that because we have been taught to be shy and to be ashamed of our culture, that our culture is barbaric, our culture is not in, our culture is not hot, or our culture, do you understand what I'm saying? We've been made to believe that because the global expectation, the global environment does not even allow us to be ourselves. Hence, we end up having a lot of men who have identity crisis. Identity crisis leads to somebody who will end up being depressed because they don't know who they are.
Yabona-ke masungena lapho mkhulu usuyishaya on the nail ngoba this becomes very controversial when you look at South Africa alone. Yes. And what's happening to a lot of us Black men and our identity, whether it goes into sexuality, and obviously you can't, and I don't judge anyone, Godwa, it does speak to a bigger war that's happening that's got to do with population control and gene pooling. If abantu abamnyama don't create Black families bezali ingane ngelinye ilanga izophela into ekuthi umuntu omnyama.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Thank you so much, Mkhulu. Thank you.
Makos.
Before I allow Isha to come through, I just want to confirm, Arvi, have we recorded? Is the session recorded? I would think I would cry.
Yes, the session has been recorded, yes.
Oh, thank you, Arishta. Okay, can I then allow Isha to share his or her story from the diaspora. Isha, welcome.
Hello,
Hi,
how are you
sir.
doing today?
I'm fine.
How are you
sir.
doing?
How are you? Thank you. I'm good.
I don't know. Very well. Very well. Thank you so much for providing this for the men across the entire diaspora throughout the continent. It's very essential. My story in itself starts in, of course, the US and in a very urban area. Apologize, my daughter, she's playing her game in the background. So
Okay.
the reality is that I grew up in the 80s, and my father's faith he was Muslim. My mother was also Muslim. And I was taken to a foster care organization whereabout I was forced into Christianity. And throughout that time, I knew that my identity was being tainted. And I asked the Most High, why is this world this way? And the reality is when you're growing up in the 80s, during one of the most epidemic times when it comes down to drug use, when it comes down to community empowerment and development, you start to see all the dark ways that are plagued onto a people. At a young boy, I saw myself fighting off young men that wanted to take advantage of my sister, and that forever changed me. I knew I needed to be a protector. I knew that I needed to understand, but I also had to get through to better understand who I am and what I must be. So I dived deep into understanding the community I was around while having to take on beliefs that were not mine completely. I always tried to hold on to the spiritual aspect of peace and empowerment and what it means for it to be not only a provider, but a protector. Above all, to be a spiritual entity that allows me to provide love to those that provide love to me. So this process was very selective. I had to take my time. I had to understand who is the source and what is the source and why that source is what it is. I went on to finish school, and you're never really done with education itself. I believe we must continue to evolve, but yet we've lost a lot here and across the world. Always have this dynamic, not only being a protector, but knowing how to protect and knowing how to influence others to protect and make sure you are also protecting yourself. So it took me on a great journey. One of my godfathers informed me I had several mentors that I was fortunate. I always clung to my elders, those that I saw had a positive light that could bring me the light I needed out of the dark times I had. Going through years of counseling because of all the abuse and systematic scenarios that were going on, I had to deprogram myself, and it's been a process. It's been a long process, but I'm most grateful to the Most High that I'm able to be where I'm at. I mentored young men, I mentored communities, but yet kept my peace. So in that process of losing your father and mother, in the process of being reintroduced into society in a foster care system, I had to hone in to my spirituality. I had to hone into what is true, what is not true, what is consistent, what is not consistent. And it took me through a large amount of dynamics to the point I was able to get peace. And then still seeking even greater peace in the process of building. So I'll be actually relocating from here in the next within the next year. We have a lot of projects on the West Coast right now we're focused on.
Yeah.
I've worked for some of the biggest conglomerates in the United States, financial realm and everything else. But I fought no peace because I felt like my purpose was being tainted. So I went further and received other mentors that said, well, this may not be the best for you. What you possess is something outside of this. And I had to start to learn what that is. What am I possessing that is not going to be authentically accepted? That's what my godfather informed me. You're looking for authenticity. Before he passed, and he was a strong mentor. But outside of him, I had another great man that was a World War II veteran. And he began to tell me his stories when he had no choice but be left by his mother and raised by his grandparents. The strength he was able to embody into me, even in the process of just playing solitaire. He started to teach me. And I started to learn that although he may have said things more than once, there was always something new, a wisdom I didn't get because I was still growing. I had to still learn, I had to still understand what it means to be who I am, and what it means to be, and what it means to provide, and what it means to search and evolve. But the reality is, out of all this evolution, out of the dark past I had, I was finding the light. I was starting to speak up. Why is this and why is that? Why is this not being done? Can this not be done? And that has been a long road. In the process of mentoring young men, the nephews that I still have, one I lost. And this is where the depression and anxiety piece comes along. I promised his father that I would do all I can. And I had to eventually leave the area I was in to develop myself so I can actually come back with more wealth in space and in mental space and in spiritual space that I can embody into them, because I was able to see outside the community I was already living in. So those things are very essential. But even more essential is for those that are of the diaspora, those that are of the continent, do not stray away from your ancestral past. The truth is there. The truth has been there. It wasn't printed in the books. We had to find the books. It wasn't convenient to certain people because people have experienced things they did not want to talk about. So it became a moot point. So I had to go on my own journey to understand. And in my process of understanding, I did find some peace because I know now the direction I need to take. And that allows me to provide even more. I lost one of my nephews to violence here. The sad thing is, it still hurts, but I know that there is another young man that was in my scenario when I was crying on doorsteps, when no one could hear my tears but the Most High. And he said, I want you to grow. That's the message I received. I want you to grow. And I've been on that ever since.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Isha. I'm touched by your story, and thank you for the bravery that you've shown, that you can be able to share your story with us. We really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I think one of the things that you came out a stronger person and a better person from that, because most of people, when they go through such, they don't make it to still live in life. They give up. and they decide to take their lives, and they don't see a purpose why they should continue living. You know? And I think also we just need to give gratitude to the universe and the greater ones that were there before you, because I'm sensing that they were there every time for you. There was always that voice that will always make you to stand, push you to stand, to raise your head. You would have moments where you break down a lot, but after that, the voice will say, pick yourself up. We're here. You still have, time to proceed. You can still do better. You can still, make a change. You can still be okay, And I'm also I'm grateful that you've taken a step of trying to implement the change that we're talking about, whereby you're mentoring some other youngsters within your space. Now, listening to your story, I'm also sensing that because of the foundation of how you were brought up, somehow that has led to most of the happenings in your life. Because what I heard that the parents were in another faith belief, and then from there you were then taken to another faith belief way, and then you were taught and enforced to be that, even though later in life you discovered that is not actually what you wanted to be, but conditions and circumstances at the time forced you to abide to that. And that is where, when I was talking earlier on, that most of us, we as men, we suffer from the identity crisis of not knowing who we are, and because sometimes we're not spiritually balanced. So you would then, in your journey, you felt that you could feel the imbalance on your spirituality. You could feel the imbalance of self, which is why you then did your own research to try and find who are you and what is your destiny and purpose of life. And I'm really proud of you for to have walked that path and still be able to stand. And I'm just out of words. Honestly, I'm out of words. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
How RV will be able to give us your details so that we can keep in touch with you as we walk through this journey. It's not a once-off journey. We will still have more of the sessions because we want to continue having this platform whereby we can listen to the stories of other men, of how do they get through certain things. Maybe we can learn from that and see how best we can be able to grow as a nation, and also to assist our youngsters.
Praise the Most High. Praise the Most High. Thank you so much.
So, you're welcome. You're welcome. So, Isha, will you be able to share your details? You can maybe write them on the screen, or you can just give them to RV, then so that we can be able to keep in touch. Okay.
Yes. I will send you over the email, send over the personal information afterwards.
Okay.
I have WhatsApp, and when someone reach out to me, I have to keep my line pretty secure. So, yes, let's move forward.
Which country are you in?
United States.
Okay, all right. You're in US. And Angola, which country? You are also in US, isn't it?
Yes, working on projects in the Republic of Ghana, purchasing land now, and we're doing a lot of good work. I have a corporation, but I'll give more details at a later time. But we're doing a lot of great work. Still working to build investors and reliable contacts to move forward. We're seeking to employ many people and build a particular community that I believe we can definitely ensure that it moves even forward. I believe that all needs to obtain the best of themselves, and where we can, we will provide. And where the Most High allow us to direct, we'll go. Just takes one step at a time, one brother at a time, one sister at a time, to get to where we need to be.
True. Thank you so much. I just want to confirm something. Ngola, are you also in US? By the way, please confirm with me. Nkulu Ngola, you can unmute yourself? Is he still around? Nkulu Ngola?
I think it's far from his mic.
Yeah. Arvi, remind me, did he say he's in US?
Angola is in the US, yes, in Georgia.
Okay. So I'm just thinking now that since also Isha they're in US, maybe they need to exchange contacts and then start building the brotherhood there from that angle, the support from that side.
Yes, I would send Brother Isha about Angola's number by mail.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this, Isha. We really appreciate, and we will definitely be keeping in touch. And also with all the projects that you're doing there, we'll also be interested in knowing what you and getting more info, so that if we have our relatives or friends that we know that on that side from the diaspora, we can also just hook them up with you guys, you and Gola, that side. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Blessings to you all. Thank you.
You're welcome. Wow. Yeah, I'm now I'm allowed to be emotional. It's my right. It's my right to be emotional. It's not about me being a woman. Remember, I'm cool. I've got Nkulu within me. So yeah, but my Nkulu is allowed to be emotional and be in touch with the feminine side. So I would like to now to come to close off and round up the session for today. It has been quite a journey, which I believe it will benefit us and has benefited most of us. And for the near future, I will communicate our next session, which I believe in the next 2 or 3 weeks, so that we can be able to see and move forward in terms of what we wish to accomplish. And as I voiced that, can we then look into having at least 3 points that we feel that this should be our rights as men, how best we can then try to put that forward, then yeah, we can take it from there. Thank you so much. I don't have many words, but if there's anybody who would like to say something before we close off in the next 5 minutes or so, is there anyone who would like to say something before we close off? You can just unmute yourself and speak. Okay, seems like everyone is on mute. All right then. Well, I take it that we're all overwhelmed, meaning to say we are absorbing everything that has happened today, and we need to go to our own spaces and digest everything that happened today. I would like to conclude and say thank you so much, Arvi. Thank you, always a star, always. Thank you for the support for those who managed to log in with us. And thank you for those who are still going to watch, and those who will be watching after the session has been completed, and those who are willing to watch also, and those who are going to watch in the future. Thank you for the support, and I trust this session is going to help, and it has helped you emotionally, spiritually. So thank you. Tamaku Makosi Ndawo. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Bobo.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Gogo.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, Kagiso. Thank you, Shai. It's an
Thank
amazing
you. Thank you.
contribution. Thank you, everyone.
Siyabonga kakhulu.
Siyabonga kakhulu. Uye wathi ukulahleka kancane. U-Isha is also in US. So